Oh,
We're live, buddy. Welcome back to Off Ball Takes. This is your host, Harvey Laws. This is my co-host.
Christopher Wells.
We appreciate all the support that you guys have been giving us. We are here with a live episode. Yes, we are back doing live streams, and we will be recapping, some of the week's, marquee matchups, storylines, news, and stuff like that, just to get a sense of, what you guys are thinking. Obviously, that's the main thing we want to do is interact with you guys. As we are getting back into this live stream swing of things. And we haven't done one in a while, so forgive us if we're rusty, timing and things like that. But yeah, what an exciting, opening week or two. I think it's been pretty special to watch, some of the players blossom, and we've kind of already been given some crazy performances, and some teams are pretty hot and some teams are pretty cold. So we'll be discussing all of that as, we do get started with this episode. And before we do, please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the OBT Podcast for more content and updates.
Yeah, so obviously now we're a couple of weeks into the NBA season, so we'll kind of kick it off, I guess, with a couple of the games from tonight, right? Obviously, you had Cleveland and Orlando and Denver and Minnesota as the nationally televised games, right? Those were really the only, main games that I guess were that kind of mattered. But obviously there were others as well. Obviously for Orlando, if you haven't already known, right, Paolo Banchero, he's going to be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks, right, with an oblique tear, I believe. So obviously that's a major problem for Orlando because he's been their best player and he's been having a great season. But Cleveland, to be honest, has honestly played very well this year, right? Because I mean, like so far they're undefeated. I mean, they basically won their first 5 games. And not all of them have been against bad teams. Some of them have been, but still, regardless, like they've looked really good in all these games. I mean, you've gotten contributions from all the starters, right? Allen didn't do much in this game, but he's had a really good season. Evan Mobley has had a great year so far. And then obviously Garland and Mitchell have been doing their thing. And, again, we talked about it in the offseason with the changes that they made where they didn't really actually make that many changes, but they did make a adjustment with their coach, right? They fired Bickerstaff and they swapped him out with Kenny Atkinson, and I didn't really feel like it was going to do that much, but so far through the first few games you can see the difference that he's had in terms of kind of figuring out the right combinations and kind of pushing the right buttons, and the guys are playing well and everything's kind of clicking so far. And again, this is the best Mobley's looked so far to begin a season. And, that's kind of a big thing for them because he's, of their young guys, he's the guy that probably has, the biggest variance in terms of the floor and the ceiling, I guess, outside of Garland. But his ceiling feels like it may be higher than Garland's just because of his ability defensively to impact the game. While if he can grow offensively, then obviously that can kind of get some things going too. So far, Cleveland has had one of the best starts that they've had to a season in a while because again, they have not lost a game yet.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of took me by surprise was how good they are offensively. And I guess it kind of think a couple of things kind of go hand in hand. Like when Evan Mobley gets better offensively, obviously the team is going to look better. And then obviously when Garland, is kind of looking like, the year that when he was an all-star, pretty much, that when you get that form of Garland, I think that will extremely accelerate, what kind of growth that you're going to be looking for from the team. Like he's had a great bounce back season. He's actually shooting the ball very well from all 3 levels of the floor, and he's playmaking, with I guess limited turnovers as well. So that's pretty cool. And also, they're through 5 games, they proved that Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland can coexist. So yeah, offensively, that's been the main thing that's kind of caught my eye. And I, like you said, I do like the combinations that they've been putting out there. The rotational guys are kind of giving me Boston vibes, where it's like, you have Merrill, you have Dean Wade, a couple of guys that can come in there and just shoot threes and also play a little bit of defense. They can be scrappy as well. So I think, the depth pieces have also gotten better offensively.
Yeah, of the Central Division teams, Cleveland has gotten off to the hottest start. I mean, they are 6-0.
Yeah.
And then if you look around at the rest of the Central Division, they're kind of lagging behind, right? Obviously, you have, the Bulls, who I think we all expected to so far have the second best record in the division. Not really, but they are 500, 3-3. And then you have the Indiana Pacers at 2-4, the Bucks at 1-4, and then obviously the Pistons are 1-5. So, you're kind of looking at the Pacers and the Bucks, and they've been lagging behind Cleveland so far, which is a real problem because at least, especially for Milwaukee, right? Because unlike say Indiana and Cleveland, right? Milwaukee was kind of looked at as one of those other teams that might be able to challenge the Celtics for, the Eastern Conference crown and possibly the title, but they've looked bad so far to begin the season. And, to be fair, Chris Middleton's been out, but they also haven't really had that difficult of a schedule. They've been losing some of these games to, kind of middling teams like Chicago. They got, blown out by Chicago. They got blown out by Milwaukee. They got blown out by the Grizzlies, and I'm pretty sure, a couple of their starters were out, right? Like Ja was there, Jaren Jackson Jr. was there, but they were missing Desmond Bain. They were missing Marcus Smart. Obviously they were missing other rotational guys too. So it just is kind of weird to see, those teams, kind of struggle. But obviously for now, we're going to be focusing, on those other games. And then for the Magic, right? They were looking really good, but now they're probably going to slide a little bit because Paolo's out. And I don't really know how you can really recover from that because that's your best player. And they just don't really have enough offensively outside of him to really kind of make up for it. Like, Wagner, he's good, but now he's going to be kind of, like slotted into like a primary role alongside like a Jalen Suggs, and that's probably just not going to be good enough to get it done. Anthony Black, for what it's worth, has looked really good in his second season so far. Right now, he's getting regular minutes. He, has started and has closed in a lot of these games. But, I just don't really know where the offense is going to come from Orlando. I mean, Tristan Da Silva played, who wasn't really playing, and he had a good game. But it's just kind of rough because they were already kind of offensively challenged at times. Their defense is kind of their identity. But, Paolo was able to kind of carry them. But now,
I think, yeah, you were frozen for that part,
Mhm.
but I got the gist of what you were saying. I think everybody else did. Yeah, but offensively, Orlando's going to struggle, like you pretty much just said. Paolo being out, definitely not going to help at all whatsoever. And I think people are really going to struggle a lot when it comes to this stuff. Because you can't really bring in a guy like Jet Howard because he kind of lacks in defense, but then you would kind of hope that you would get some of it from Anthony Black, but offensively he's not super duper polished around the edges. So I think Orlando is definitely in trouble, and everybody knew that if Paolo or one of those guys got hurt, they were going to be in trouble because they just don't have one of those creators, and they definitely don't have a creator that can replicate what Paolo can do. I think it's going to be tough for a guy like Wagner to kind of replicate that because very different players. They do similar things, similar impact on the game, but nowhere near enough to kind of replicate each other. So I think Paolo going down is gonna this could potentially ruin their season, honestly.
Yeah, because again, with all the teams kind of being close in the standings, probably by the end of it, you need to be able to start off strong. And they were starting off really well.
Yeah,
And then now, obviously, it's going to be really tough, without your best player. And, they've had some other guys in and out of the lineup too
sure.
because of injuries. But, that's just kind of rough and they're not the only team, to be fair, that's dealing with injuries. But, for the Magic, this was a team that I think a lot of people kind of expected to take another step forward. So
Yes,
that's going to be challenged right now.
yes.
Then you move on to the marquee game of the night. This one ended up being, a really fun game, to watch in the fourth quarter, and that
Yeah,
was Denver, Minnesota, right? So Minnesota ended up pulling this off 119-116, and it was funny because for most of the first half, right, the Nuggets kind of were playing well and they were looking pretty good. Despite the fact that the bench was absolutely atrocious.
once again.
But yeah, but Minnesota, was also playing well, right? Like Edwards was playing well, Randall was playing well. You were getting a good Gobert game. Naz Reid was pretty good. But then the second half happened, and Denver started to kind of fall apart, where they were, starting to fall back by double digits, and they were down. I want to say by as much as what was it, like 14 or so. And in the fourth quarter, Minnesota pretty much blew their entire lead. Um, and some of that was actually led by the non-Jokic minutes, right? Where, I mean, to be fair, Porter and Aaron Gordon were the main drivers there. Westbrook actually had some moments. He still finished a minus 13, and that's because they ended up blowing the lead that they ended up building up. But he had an awful start to the game. He was playing better. But obviously the main drivers were Gordon and Porter, right, who just kind of turned into sharpshooters this game. For Porter, we know he can shoot, but he had been struggling to start the season. But Gordon's not really known as a great outside shooter, but he was hitting everything in this game. But then it kind of came down to the fourth. Obviously, the Wolves offensively were starting to fall apart, like it felt like they had been in some of these previous games. And then the Nuggets started to pull away. Christian Brown had the poster over Gobert, right? They were getting into it, and it felt like at that point the game might have been over, right? But then Denver fell apart. Obviously, if you didn't know, Jamal Murray, he got hurt in the game. He had to leave it early with a concussion protocol, so he didn't really play in the fourth quarter. So that probably also mucked up Denver's offense as well. Well, not probably. I know it did. But Minnesota ended up pulling back, right? They came back and they Edwards kind of knocked down some big shots. Nikhil Alexander-Walker hit a couple of threes to get him back in the game, and it ended up being kind of an improbable comeback win, which would have initially, if either team had lost this game, it would have been rough, given how both teams kind of needed a win.
Yeah.
But now it ended up being a good win for Minnesota, even though it still kind of feels weird to watch them play at times. But then for Denver, obviously, it's a tough loss because you had the double-digit lead later in the game and you couldn't close the deal, which hasn't normally happened with the Nuggets. But, to be fair, in these last couple of games before that, they actually were able to close it out. But that was with Jamal Murray. But he wasn't really playing that well in this game anyways.
No.
So, it's been rough for Denver because you look at that bench. I mean, they scored 116 points. And I mean, you only got basically 12 points off the bench, right? And for a while, they only had like 2 or 4, right? He had a couple of Westbrook buckets. But I mean, it's been just atrocious.
Yeah. Wolves once again enjoyed tasty nuggets. Yeah, it was close. It was a somewhat wonky ending, like
Yeah.
you said. But I think you do have to shout out Anthony Edwards for having one of those monster games where he kind of just is lighting it up, and the trend continues. The guy took 14 threes and made 7 of them, so shooting
Mhm.
50%, a lot of threes. But regardless, you can't hate on his game. But I think Denver is in a very, very, very bad predicament at this point because they're dropping games. They're getting into close games. Pretty much all of their games have
Every
been
game
very, very close. But
except for the first one where they got blown out.
yeah, and it's like, they're getting into close games with some horrible teams and good ones. But, I think that might be a trend to kind of watch. If they can't close games against good teams and are barely scraping by against, bottom of the barrel squads, then I think, that's really, really dangerous territory. And I think it starts from the bench because, you get a decent amount from your starters, but then
Yeah.
the Westbrook minutes, and I hate to keep making him the scapegoat, but a lot of the times when he was out there, it just looked like automatic dysfunction. They're sagging off of him, defensively, so teams would be sagging off. He's shooting it, they're daring him to shoot, and it's a brick. Um, and then also, the turnovers are rough too because I think they're very timely and costly. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't make sense. Some of them are like, "What were you thinking? What did you see?" But regardless, I think he's got to step up. Ant Man now Giant Man / Goliath. Absolutely, Ant Man has been on a tear.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because like Minnesota, if they don't win this game, then the conversation is kind of about them because before they pulled off the fourth quarter comeback, it was kind of looking like what happened against Dallas, where for a decent chunk of the game they looked good. Then in the second half they kind of stunk, and for Minnesota it was weird because for most of this season their offense has been good. It's good, right? It's kind of a big deal when you kind of watch them play, and it just looks a lot different. And that's kind of what we talked about, right? We Minnesota was going to be different, too. So they are above 500, but you kind of look at them, and so far through these first few games, right? They are 10th on offense, right? And then they're 15th defensively. So it's kind of like an average team. Obviously, it might change after tonight, but not by much. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird scenario where it's like, yeah, I do feel better, I guess, for now about Minnesota than Denver, but I still don't really know how I really feel about either team, to be honest. Looks like Trent from Miami Heat Network also is in the chat as well.
Yeah, what's up, bro? He's lagging. Yeah, we're having a little bit of
Yeah,
technical difficulties on our end, but it is what it is. Regardless, though, yeah, I think Minnesota is another one of those teams where they're one to watch because they're kind of brand new. They brought in some additions, and those additions have looked good. I think Julius Randle's looked pretty pretty dang good. I think DiVincenzo's kind of been the one where you kind of question, the fit a little bit, but I feel like that's kind of just his play style where he's a gunslinger and jacker. He's going to keep shooting, but I think he's got to be a little bit better offensively down the line for them to actually make it far. But I think everybody's really rooting for the Minnesota Timberwolves to have a great season.
yeah, I agree. I mean, you kind of just, I mean, because again, I think everybody likes Anthony Edwards, so I mean, you kind of just watch them play, and you're kind of hoping for the best from him. I know the commentators kind of mentioned that, what did they say? Kind of like a charming cockiness to him,
Yeah.
right? Where you just kind of watch him play, and you can just kind of feel when he's out there that he's kind of ready to do things on both ends of the floor.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we got Let Me Hop In from Trent, and then also Keith Wells says new Wolves additions look good. So, and yeah, like I think that the Wolves additions have been good. I just feel like I would like to see a little bit better, from some, because like this game was a coin flip game, but to be fair, they still won it. So it's like I'm still kind of skeptical about this team from a championship perspective, but I think it's like what we talked about, where like Minnesota is still going to be good. I don't think we had any real concerns about whether or not they could win games. I think you're kind of looking at Denver, where I think we thought they could win games too, even though we thought they'd be worse. But so far we don't know. But again, Randall, we know he's good. We know he can play. We know he, offensively as a passer playmaker, that is an upgrade over Towns, right? From that perspective, maybe not from a shooting perspective, but he is shooting well to start the season. So, I mean, I don't really have any complaints from anybody in terms of the stars. Obviously, for Minnesota, it's more so like a couple other guys, like Mike Conley has been not really that great so far. He made a couple of shots, but I guess that's kind of where it's nice to have another guard in DiVincenzo. Nikhil Alexander Walker still playing well, so not really too many complaints there. And I think again, it's new pieces, so it takes time for these guys to kind of figure out how to play alongside each other, anyways. Because you even mentioned DiVincenzo, and he's kind of been struggling shooting the ball wise, but
Hmm.
you can kind of see out there he makes sense as a rebounder. As a guy, who can still defend on the perimeter.
Hmm.
So that's where
Yeah.
I think like once the shot starts falling, it'll look better. But
Yeah.
either way, like Minnesota shot the ball well this season. The offense hasn't really been the issue because they
Mm.
were not a great offensive team last year, but now they're top 10. It's just
Yeah.
the defense has taken a big drop off because again, they're basically an average defensive team right now, which I just don't think is going to cut it unless they're like a top 5 offensive team. I think they need to be better on one end of the floor, either on offense or defense.
Yeah, and I think that's why Rob Dillingham hasn't seen the floor yet. No, I don't think that's gonna make it much better. I know that's kind of been a weird topic of conversation. People saying that he hasn't made his debut yet, which is very interesting. And they are playing some competitive squads, so that could also be a factor. But I mean, I'm not too worried about them. I just want to see more.
No,
If you
yeah,
want me to keep it real, and for
exactly.
me, like the key is as long as Ant is dialed in, like this team can go very far because this is a different version of Anthony Edwards. Like I think
Yeah,
than we saw last year. Last year definitely more downhill heavy, but it seems like he's really tuned in with his jump shot, which I think is a good thing because like
mhm,
you talked about on last week's episode where it's like he's taking an obscene amount of threes, but he's making them. So
yeah,
why not? And he's not, and like in this game, no free throw attempts. That's kind of insane. It's almost like, who is this guy? It's a different version. So if this version can kind of, continue to look better and better and continue to shoot the three, pretty well, I think, they could go potentially pretty far.
yeah, and that's kind of a big deal. Where if you talk about how are they going to kind of figure out how this offense works together, well, I mean, if Edwards is going to take more threes, then that's going to be part of it because that'll help the shooting. So
Yeah.
Trent says I'm not worried about Minnesota. So what do you think about that?
Uh, I would be worried about Minnesota. It depends on what perspective we're talking about. Like, are you not worried about them as an NBA fan, or Ant gonna get tired out like he did last year? Hey, you never know, because what if Julius Randle shows up or DiVincenzo? Like, those guys could potentially show up. I mean, in the playoffs, I don't think they're gonna win the chip. I'm just saying, I think
No.
they'll go to like the Western Conference Finals. Like they could. That wouldn't surprise
Yeah,
me, especially if he's on a heater again. Like,
and it's interesting because it kind of opens up a conversation about the West, right? Because you go back 2 seasons ago, right, and Denver was kind of the best team in the Western Conference, and now they're kind of trending downwards, while some of these other teams, are kind of moving on the up and up. But I think there's another team that's kind of been playing really well in the West, and they also played tonight as well, although they played the Portland Trailblazers, and that's the Oklahoma City, right, and they are another team, right, that's undefeated basically, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so and you look at them, they're getting contributions from a lot of guys. When's the last time Randall showed up in the postseason? Yeah, it hasn't really happened. I mean, I think he's been to the playoffs, what, I guess twice?
yeah,
Like, yeah, because the first season where he was the best player on New York, because that was before Brunson, and then 2 seasons ago, right, when he got hurt with the ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken, and he was not that great. And again, like that's kind of like where I'm at too with you, where it's like I don't think they're gonna win the title, but I still
mm-hmm.
think they'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
And they could probably kick a team out that we might think, might be better. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, even a team like, say, Phoenix, or, you kind of look around at the rest of the other teams towards the top of the Western Conference, right? Teams like that, right? I mean, even, I don't know, like, if they played Memphis in the postseason, or, even like a New Orleans if they got there. I'm not going to name every team. Or even like a Denver, right? Because right now they seem better than Denver to me. So, I
yeah.
mean,
Denver sucked. Like, there's no you can't get around that, man. Like,
although,
Jokic has been fine. The starters have been solid, but that bench is horrible. And
yeah, yeah.
Celtics are winning back to back. Let's be
Now,
for real. Could be.
and the funny thing is, so far, that was my pick to win the title, just because of the fact that they also played tonight too. Celtics, yeah, that's my pick. Right now for the postseason, it's Celtics and the Thunder, and I have the Celtics winning and going back to back because again, there are some teams that have gotten better, but I don't really see another team pulling off an upset against Boston if they're healthy.
Yeah.
Nuggets are cooked done, and yeah, because the thing was with the Nuggets, like the only thing I
Suck.
could realistically see that might save them is if they would probably have to move on from like a Michael Porter Jr. or something, because that's probably the only way you could realistically, move a guy with a large contract and maybe get something back. But his contract is so large, what are you actually going to get back for him? So I don't really know what you can do there. But I don't think that's something that would happen this season. I think they would
Mm,
wait to see what happens there. The GM supposedly is going to get an extension. I don't really know why, but I guess they won a title a couple seasons ago, but I mean, it feels like he's now kind of made the team worse. Although to be fair, a couple of guys they just couldn't bring back. Like you couldn't bring back Bruce Brown. You couldn't give him 20 million a year because you just legally couldn't.
yeah.
No, Jamal Murray is terrible. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's not been
Yes.
very good either.
Agreed. Agreed. He's been worse than Michael Porter Jr. They both been
Yeah,
okay, but
I mean
in
everybody.
retrospect, Jamal Murray's been horrible.
Yeah, Jokic has been fine, and like the
Yes.
starting five has been fine mainly because of Jokic, right? Who's one of the league leaders in scoring. But yeah, you need Murray to be really good because that's the
He's
only
hurt.
other guy after Jokic that I think you kind of have to look at and be like, yeah, when he's at his best, he could be, like an all-star, all NBA level guy at his best. But he hasn't been there. He hasn't been healthy, and that's part of it. So if he can't, and we talked about it, right? Like if he can't be good, then they don't have a shot at all because they don't have enough talent after that to be able to make up for it. Because
He's
other
lost
teams
a
have,
step. He's
yeah,
lost a
because
step
other teams,
completely. He can't create space. It's really bad.
yeah, because other teams have better second options as of right now. If he's not going to be good, and that two-man game is kind of what makes them so successful. But the team can't really shoot. They have no bench, so they don't really have a shot unless something happens. Or unless Jokic just has a ridiculous postseason and they just paid him. Yeah, I mean they had to pay him because they couldn't let him walk, but you just kind of hope that he'd be better. And it's only a few games, so he could be better. But now he's hurt. Please trade Jimmy.
Yeah, he's dog water too.
Did the Heat play today? I don't think they did. They played yesterday, right? Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, because they lost to I want to say it was the Knicks, right?
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's kind of weird, but you
Washed,
go
bro.
around. It's the nurse shoes, New Balance. I think he's talking
Yeah,
about.
dude, those kicks are not good, bro. I
I've
tried
never
them on
had
in
it.
the store actually. Horrible.
His shoes are just New Balance.
Just New Balance in general, like the
Oh,
ones that Tyrese Maxey and those guys wear, Kawhi, like bro, they're horrible. Same with the
yeah, but
Mellows too, all bad. Like no
yeah,
wonder
but
these guys
like
get hurt, bro.
yeah, but I don't know. Like, and again, like some of it isn't really surprising to see from them. But tired of Jimmy, give me Kaminga pods and wigs and picks.
Yeah, that's
Um,
not happening.
it is funny because I
Golden
think it
State would
was what
never
was
do that.
I think it was like Jake Fisher, right? That's kind of been talking about the idea of like, maybe Kaminga's moved. I mean, Golden State's played well to start the season. I don't know how legit it is. I mean, they did beat New Orleans twice, but I don't know. I still don't feel like they're going to be good enough to really contend to win the title. Like they might be better than last year, mainly because they have a lot more depth. That's actually, and also they're younger. So I think that helps as well, especially during the regular season. But I don't know. I mean, like if you're Miami, like I think like the teams that have kind of been getting references like what Miami or Houston and Golden State, right? More so like I think Houston was kind of what we talked about in one of our previous episodes. And, like I guess, if you're a Heat fan, would you rather have what Houston has or what Golden State has? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I think, Houston has some good young players, but I don't really know what would happen. But then it's like if you're Golden State, do you want to bring in Jimmy Butler? Because I mean he's better than a lot of the guys they have, but then you got to factor in, he's got to be healthy, he's got to be productive. So we'll see. But going around the rest of the league, today, I mean, not a lot of amazing matchups to be honest. Give me Green, I don't care. Give me something. That's funny. But kind of going around the rest of the league. I mean, Boston over Charlotte. Don't really have to talk too much about that. I mean, Boston's continued to be really good. Obviously, I mean, that's my pick to go back to back. And so far, the way that they've played this season, I don't really see a real reason why it would change unless there's an injury to one of their main guys. And Tatum and Brown, generally speaking, are pretty healthy and pretty durable.
Yeah, Boston's look unbeatable completely. So yeah, agreed 100%. Those guys have gotten really good. Jason Tatum,
Yeah. Then you
MVP.
have then yeah. Then you got Brooklyn over Charlotte, or excuse me, Brooklyn over Chicago, 120-112. The Nets have actually honestly been, I think, a little better than we expected. They've actually been a relatively somewhat entertaining team. I mean, you got Cam Thomas that's been scoring at a ridiculous rate, which we kind of expected. Yarby over there falling asleep, wake up according to Trent.
Yeah, dude, I'm losing. I'm
Then
very freaking tired.
yeah, even like a Cam Johnson, a Ben Simmons, Nick Claxton. So I mean, like they've been more entertaining, than I think you would expect. But another game that I think was kind of interesting to watch was New Orleans and Indiana, where New Orleans has just been ransacked with injuries, right? No Herb Jones, no CJ McCollum, right? I mean, no DeJounte Murray. I mean, just like losing guys left and right. And they managed to get a win over the Indiana Pacers. Now, to be fair, Um, when you look at their lineup, their starting five is actually kind of more of a reasonable starting five in terms of like the positions, right? You got Alvarado, Jordan Hawkins, Ingram, Williamson, and Misi. So it's kind of a more conventional starting five. Then you got Zion doing his thing with 34 and 10 and 6. He hadn't shot the ball well to begin the season, but to be fair, he was battling an illness, 80 playing at an MVP pace. We'll get to them in a minute. Alex Sar, looks like we got some Alex Sar hate in the comments. I'll let you address that at some point. But with New Orleans, that depth is tested because, going, and also I forgot Trey Murphy hasn't even been playing. So you're talking about four rotational guys that go out and play against, a good team in the Indiana Pacers. And, pretty much from wire to wire, they controlled the game. And Zion was the best player on the floor by far. And Ingram, to his credit, has played awesome as well, right? And that was a guy that we knew would, could still play, but we weren't really sure how he would respond to being in all these trade rumors. But he's played awesome. Hawkins has been great. Obviously, New Orleans kind of makes up for the two horrible losses to Golden State without Steph and other rotational pieces. I mean, it's one win over two losses, but again, that's still a good performance, I think, from the Pelicans, and the Indiana Pacers really continue to struggle. I don't know
Yeah.
what's happened to them. I mean, part of it's Halliburton's been terrible, but
Yes. And that goes back to the surprises. Like, bro, Halliburton has been god awful. I don't know what happened to him. Like, he forgot how to shoot a freaking basketball and play make, which was something that made him so special. Because, there's not a lot of guys that were able to average what he was averaging, during the first half of the season last year. And he just has not looked the same ever since that. Ever since he came back from that injury. Team USA, Hallie was never great. All right, now we're just lying. Because he was definitely great in that first stretch last year up until the hamstring injury or whatever it was. So he didn't look good in Team
yeah.
USA. It was rough, but I don't think he's overrated or anything. Because like normally when a guy goes on like a run like that you can't even really consider that a run. That's more of like taking the leap. I just think that injury just derailed him completely.
Yeah, and then still not really getting a ton out of Jarvis Walker in year 2, although to be fair,
What
I
a
mean,
bust,
again,
man.
like positionally, it's just hard because they have a number of guys that play the same position, and he's not better than any of them, at least as of right now. I mean, he's not better than Siakam, obviously. He's not better than Obi Toppin. So, I mean, those are already two of your fours right there. And then, they're going to have these other lineups where they're going to play small. So, I mean, he kind of has to. And again, it's not his fault. The main reason why is Halliburton's been awful. But still, Trent says he had a stretch. That's all. That's what he's saying. And
I don't think it was a stretch.
okay.
I think that when you go off like that, like
hmm
I think that's more so the leap, but it got completely derailed from the injury because before he got hurt, his numbers were magical. Like, and I'm just being real. But then when he got hurt and came back, it was
hmm
bad, and he hasn't looked the same ever since. I think the injury is
Yeah.
still lingering because you could tell during Team USA didn't look right. He's
hmm
playing like a spot
Yeah.
up guy, and now
Mhm.
it looks 10 times worse. So that's all I'm saying. Sar's a
Do you
bust.
want to?
I mean, it's been five
Yeah, I was gonna say.
games or four
Yeah, I was gonna say. Do
games
you
for the
want to address
Wizards.
that?
I mean, he's been bad. I would say he's been bad. I don't think he's a bust because defensively he's fine.
hmm
Defensively, like, I don't have a big problem with him because he gets blocks and stuff like that. But offensively, he's horrible. But I wouldn't say he's a bust. It's a new, but injuries linger though. Like, look at Jamal Murray.
hmm
Okay, Sar's a bust again. He's not a bust. The season just started.
I mean, and that's kind of a conversation that we'll probably have, on our next episode. Not necessarily about SAR, but like about the rookies, because of the fact that like right now, who the heck is winning Rookie of the Year? Which rookie
Ryan
is
Dunn.
necessarily? Yeah, which rookie is? Ryan Dunn's been awesome, but what other rookies have stood out? Like Jonathan Mogbo for Toronto.
He's been
Like,
solid. That came out of
yeah, like,
nowhere.
yeah, and like that, and again, like, is he on track to win Rookie of the Year?
Wait, hold
Like,
on.
I mean.
Let me see something. Cause I could have sworn I saw a crazy comment. Yeah, it's crazy that the Wizards and Miami Heat have the same record, but we're bums. That's crazy. I mean, we are bums, but I don't know what that would make the Heat. I just had to
Right.
address a comment I saw earlier. But all the rookies don't suck. Like even Risa Share, I'm gonna defend the guy. I don't think he's bad. I think
I don't think
he
so. I
he
don't think
has been bad shooting the ball, and that's the trend you're going to see offensively. But defensively and off the ball, some of these guys are really, really solid. Like Risa Share's off the ball defense is pretty sweet.
Mhm.
Bums, yeah, ironic. 2-2, 2-2, ironic. I guess everybody with a 2-2 record is a bum. I mean, like I said,
Um,
we are bums, but it's very ironic. And Russell
so
Westbrook, my God, that guy is washed, cooked,
oh my god.
complete dog water, bro.
Yeah. And again, I was the guy who said I did not love the signing. Now, again, is it all
Freaking
his fault
sucks,
that
bro.
the team is bad? Absolutely not. The whole second unit is awful. Even if he wasn't on the team, the second unit would still be bad because none of the guys in the second unit have been good. We've addressed that multiple times. But I want to get back to OKC and Portland because we didn't really get to talk about. Yeah, he did play much better in the second half. To his credit. So,
Bro. Let me pull up this box score real quick.
oh my god. But
Sorry.
I
I
kind
need to
of.
do I need to pull this up real quick.
All right.
This is indefensible, bro.
Yeah, the Brooklyn game was good, but. He's talking about the game before as well. Brooklyn game. He was good in the Brooklyn game.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's fine. That's fine. But one game, congrats. They're 2-3, and he's one of the main reasons. The box score doesn't define it. Okay, I guess it doesn't.
But I want to go back to OKC and
It's the
Portland because we
little
didn't really.
things, yeah. Turnovers. How about those? A lot of them. Too many, in my opinion.
Um,
Can't even hit an open three. Jeez.
but
Jeez, man.
but going back to OKC, I mean, Chet was not that great. I mean, but they didn't need him to be because SGA, after having a couple of slow games, he was awesome. Jalen Williams was awesome. I mean, OKC has just been fantastic. I mean, so far they've kind of been the best team in the Western Conference so far this season, on both ends of the floor. I mean, because you look at their defense, even without Hartenstein, and not much size after that. I mean, they've just been kind of able to shut teams down, which is just kind of ridiculous. And then you look at Chet; he wasn't amazing in this game, but prior to that, I mean, he was basically giving you, like 20 and 10 a game, 3.5 blocks. I mean, if you get that version of Chet combined with a really good version of Jalen Williams, we already know what SGA can do. You still have Caruso, still have Lou Dort, um, and then Hartenstein coming back, and they still have all this depth. I mean, that team, like we talked about, OKC is kind of the team to watch out for in the Western Conference. Obviously, they're super young, not very experienced, but what have you kind of seen from OKC so far that's kind of made you, you know, kind of jump for joy? Because we were both very high on this team, regardless, and I think most people are. To be
Yeah,
fair,
it's the two-way tenacity for me. Their ability to really chase guys off the floor. Um, Now bully them as well, and then offensively, what they've been able to put together. Caruso, fitting in defensively, like you talked about. Chet, being the two-way monster that I think we both knew that he could be coming into the league. And then
hmm
obviously a guy like Shea is just amazing. And then you fit Jalen Williams right in the middle of everything, and it's honestly the perfect setup for a lot of success to come because that team is elite in the West. Like they're just
yeah.
building off of what they had last year. The RB is chatting right now. No, I'm not. I guess I'm chatting when the guy was minus 13 in a freaking loss where they lost by 3. So every time he was out there on the floor, they pretty much were losing by 13 points. Yeah, right. But I guess I'm
But
chatting. 1
and
for
then
8.
for Portland, you know, not much to say there. I mean, they did get a win. They've had a couple of wins, but I mean, kind of hard to really talk about that team because there's just a lot of bizarre fits. Scoot Henderson still comes off the bench, and he's been better, but still I think a little bit underwhelming so far. I mean, again, he's been better, but I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, like, because it feels like I just want to see more from him. But to be fair, Portland has a lot of guards, and they're gonna have more coming back. Whenever Shaden Sharp comes back. So I mean, I don't know, but Portland is also just such a bizarre team. I mean, a random mishmash of players, and not really too many guys are really playing all the well. I guess Aiton's been fine, clinging off the bench fine, but I mean, like, I don't know, this Tamani Kamara, right? One of our commenters on a previous video said he might be a dark horse for most improved before the season started. He's been good, but I don't know. Like Portland is, I don't know, not really a whole lot to say there. But we knew they'd be bad, so
I mean,
it's just
there's
I would like to see more, continue to see more from Scoot because I'm a little nervous about that.
there's been no structure whatsoever. Like
Mhm.
there's literally been no structure whatsoever. You want Brogdon? Okay, then give me your first round pick.
Is he
He's
even?
he's
I
hurt.
I
He's
was gonna
hurt.
say I don't even think he's
I
healthy
wouldn't.
right
I
now.
shoot. If you want to give me a first round pick for a guy who can't even stay healthy, then by all means, I'll take it. That would be fleece of the century. Yeah, Scoot is horrible, bro. Like I'm actually like that pick makes me so mad. Like
It should. Well, it shouldn't because you didn't have
false.
him going number 2 anyways. You
I
should
know.
feel over the moon. It's me that kind of has to take the L on that one. Although to be fair, like I was never somebody who thought Brandon Miller would be bad or a bust, but I thought Scoot would be a lot better. But these G League Ignite guys,
They all
they keep
suck, bro. It's a scam.
they keep they keep tricking us. I mean, like Jalen Green, I guess looks pretty good, but I don't know. Like the G League Ignite, the fact that they've already kind of shut it down, like, and the fact that we haven't gotten a lot of great talent out of there, it's kind of rough. Let's have this Wemby talk.
What about him?
Um, I don't know. I mean, because it's funny because in our previous episode, we were talking about he was having a slow start to the season. Now, last game he had a 5-by-5, right? Which I mean, he's had two of the last 5-by-5s by any by any NBA player. I mean, part of it is that again, I do think they miss Devin Vassell because he is a guy that can play make and can score with the ball in his hands or off the ball, right? So they miss his shooting and his overall talent. And then,
Wemby is mid.
I mean,
It's 5 games into the season.
yeah, no, like I think he'll be better. I just think like for this team, I do think they need Devin Vassell, but also I don't really expect this team to be that great anyways. It's just like, and some of it's kind of tough because they're kind of put in these spots where like say the center isn't even really guarding Wemby. They're usually guarding Sohan because they're kind of trying to see, whether or not he can kind of punish them offensively. And like to be fair, he's playing well offensively, with the attention he's getting from these bigs. But even with Wemby, it's like we've talked about. I think he still falls in love with the jump shot a little too much. Would like to
Agreed.
see him play more around the basket, like in the post, because he's so freaking tall. As opposed to kind of just sometimes drifting around the mid range and the three. Like, I mean, it's not that he can't take jumpers ever. I just think they should kind of set him up closer to the basket in some of these possessions. Work inside out, not outside in. Like, but I think he'll be better. Like, it's just, because again, he was great last game. So, maybe that kind of ends the slump. And, to be fair, if they want to be better, he has to be better. Because we talked about it where we thought he could be a borderline top 10 guy this season, but that has not been the case so far. Last night or the previous night, he was great. I think he was just kind of slumping, and, both he and the team kind of have to figure out how to improve it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's cause for concern. It's 5 games into the season. It's not. It's 5 for 18, 9, 20, and 1 for 5 shooting. But I thought it wasn't all about that stuff, the field goal percentage and stuff. It's crazy. But regardless, it's only been 5 games into the season. Like, you can tell when somebody's cooked, and I don't think he's cooked because his numbers aren't bad. They're just a little underwhelming compared to what we
He's not
saw
shooting the
last year.
ball well. Yeah, he's not shooting the ball
Exactly.
well.
It's just the efficiency is quite frustrating to watch, I think. Specifically the 3-pointer, like you were saying. 6 threes a game, and you're not really making like you're barely making like 25% of that. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
good. And that was the one concern I had.
Mhm. Yeah.
That was the
He
one
said
concern I had for him going into the draft. So
right. He said add me to the call. You got to join the Discord,
yeah, you
because
gotta go into the Discord.
yeah, I think I sent you the link a while back. So you got to join the Discord if you want to join the call, and then you got to, join the channel, and then we'll bring you in. But I mean, if you want to do that, you're gonna have to, click on that link again. So, but then Kings Hawks. Kings got to win over the Hawks. Hawks aren't that great. They have a bunch of injuries, to be fair. But again, the Kings. I mean, I still kind of am not that impressed by them. Although to be fair, like when you look at their record, I mean they're 3-2. And again, like we've talked about, with all these teams, it's such a small sample size that you don't really want to overreact to what you're seeing so far. You have to be careful because you know 5 games after this, a lot of these records could flip, right? A lot of these teams that we see towards the top or the bottom, they could shift, right? I don't think Denver will stay the 11th seed for the entire season. I think they'll be better than that. Um, and I don't think Golden State, will be a top 3 seed, the whole season, right? Or Houston at 5. I don't like these will probably change. But once you get to about 20 games or so, right? So once you get to like, I don't know, mid late December, or past that, right? That's kind of I think when you can kind of get to, a point where you can kind of evaluate these teams a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then, I guess Lakers, Raptors. I mean, again, the Raptors are bad. So, and they also have a bunch of guys out. I mean, again, this is a game that the Lakers should have won. Obviously, they were up big in the first half, and then in the second half, got pretty ugly. I mean, again, we've, going back to the Keith Wells comment about AD playing MVP basketball. Yeah, he's been great. It's just obviously our concerns really were more so the defense and then the bench. And so far, that's kind of been the problem because offensively, they've actually been good so far this season, right? I think they've been a top 10 offensive team, but defensively they've been like a bottom 10 team, which is not great. So I mean that's going to have to probably change, but right now with the personnel, I don't really see it getting that much better. It's just going to probably depend on the team. Like against Cleveland, it was bad because, Cleveland's a more athletic team. They have a ton of size, and that's a major problem. But, with a team like Toronto, I mean, that just doesn't have as much talent. This is a team that you got to be able to, beat up on, right? So, it was good they were able to hold on, but, that second unit's got to, there's probably going to have to be some staggering, I think, because the starting five has been good, right? I don't really have too many complaints. I mean, D'Lo was good today. He hadn't been good for most of the season, but the second unit is a major problem because they're just not getting anything from anybody, right? Like Max Christie's not been that great. Gabe Vincent's not been that great. Hayes is okay, right? But you don't really expect much offensive, scoring production from him anyways. You're hoping that maybe he blocks some shots and gets some rebounds. And he's not a great rebounder or shot blocker, but you just kind of hope to get, because he's your only real option at the five. And then, like connect off the bench, right? I mean, he's a rookie. So, that's the main thing is that, like, it looks like Redick has improved the team on the margins for sure, but I think they're still going to need some personnel upgrades if they actually want to be like a more legit team.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then, your Knicks, right? Getting a huge win over the Detroit Pistons, right? 128-98, right? That's your pick to win the title. After that horrible loss to the Celtics, in that first game, they've only lost one game since then to the Cavs. Now, to be fair, their schedule's been a little bit up and down, but what have you seen from the Knicks so far since the loss to the Celtics? Have you seen growth? Do you feel, better about your pick than maybe you did after the first game?
Um, I'll say the Miami game gave me a little bit of reassurance. Um, I kind of liked what I saw there, because I think, Towns had the 44 bomb, which was pretty dope. So to see him kind of showcase that he brings a lot offensively to the squad is going to be, something special and something to watch, because I think that could be the key. Like, can Boston shut that down? If he gets going, do they have the personnel to really limit a guy like Towns in a 5-out offense? Who knows? So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Right.
And Bridges has looked somewhat better. I can't get it, SMH, but yeah, the Knicks pick is gross.
Oh,
Is
boy.
he saying like the
I think he's saying that he doesn't like that you picked the Knicks. I think he's like disagreeing about your Knicks pick. Is
yeah, I
what he's
just think
saying.
it's hard. I think people are very quick to um immediately jump, not like bandwagon, but like they're very quick to say, yeah, this team is going to go back to back, but people don't realize it's so hard to
Very
go
different.
back to back. Like it doesn't it's not as
We
easy
learned
as
that the
it
hard way.
sounds.
We
Yeah,
learned
learned
that
it
the
the
hard way
hard.
last
Yeah, and that's why I can't choose Boston. Like I think Boston's amazing. I think they are the best team in the Eastern Conference, but the best team doesn't always win the finals. So
year. I mean, yeah, I mean that's just kind of how it goes. But like I guess kind of looking around, for future games, right? I guess over the weekend, right? I mean, you got Philly and uh, uh the Grizzlies, but again with the Sixers, Embiid and Paul George have not played, and they still have not continued to play. My expectation is that they're probably going to play sometime next week, right? We don't know when, but they haven't really been able to win games with. I mean, they got the one win over Indiana, but we can't really evaluate the Sixers team really, to be honest, until Embiid and Paul George come back. But I mean, like, I don't know, like it's it it's kind of the highs. Philly could be really good and challenge a team like Boston or New York. I just don't expect them to. Like, I just don't think that their health situation will. I mean, it'll improve from this, but do I expect them to really stay healthy the entire season and win the title? Personally, I would say no.
yeah, I mean everyone's kind of entitled to their own opinion. But I don't know. Me personally, you know, I made my pick,
Yeah,
and if my pick is wrong, I'll lay
no,
in
we're
it.
not.
But I don't.
We're not changing it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a. I wouldn't say it's a nasty pick because I think they're pretty much the runner up in the Eastern Conference. So I like
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
odds. And I'm not saying like something bad is gonna happen in Boston or anything like that. But
If they can get a top 3 seed, they got a shot. That's all they gotta do, and I think they
yeah,
have a decent shot at getting it because of the fact that you look at the other teams outside of Boston, which teams that we kind of looked at as contenders are gonna challenge. I mean, like, of course, it's so early, so all these things could change, but, like, Milwaukee's gotten off to a horrid start, and then, Philly, to be fair, their excuse is that they're hurt, that right? They are missing 2 of their 3 best players. But with the Bucks, I mean, Middleton's out, but Giannis and Lillard are there. And, not only are they healthy, they're playing pretty well. Although Lillard had one of his worst games ever against the Grizzlies. But prior to that, he had been playing pretty well. So, McCall's jumper, I'm not going to read that. I'm not
Macau's
reading that.
jumper is worse than Yarby's
I'm not
jumper in
reading
real life. Hey
I'm not
man,
reading it.
I it probably is, bro. I'm disgusted by it, and that was something that I had brought up. I was like, it does look freaking disgusting, but now that
I
he's
mean, like,
actually hitting a little bit, I'll take it.
yeah, like, since to be fair, like, since that first game, he's been shooting the ball a lot better, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
he's not shooting the ball as poorly as he shot in that first game. And, like, the stats in that first game now don't look that bad because he was knocking down a lot more shots once the game was over. But, like, since then, 8 for 12, 9 for 15, 6 of 16, which is bad against the Heat, but 4 of 11 from 3 you'll take, and then 6
Mm.
of 13 from the field.
It's a
So,
long season, man. We're
yeah,
5 games
exactly.
into the season. This is my favorite time of the year because everybody's overreacting. Everybody's crashing out. They think that some teams are good, and some teams are bad, and like some of them are
Mhm.
actually like legit dog crap, and others are actually pretty freaking good. But around like
Yeah.
I would say, uh, like I don't even know, like the 20 game
January,
mark,
yeah,
25 game mark.
yeah,
I feel pretty solid
December.
about it.
December.
Yo,
What's up?
yo, listen. I can't get what I had to say in text. Not to interrupt y'all's show, but look. So this Russell Westbrook slander. Let's
He's
talk about this real quick.
trash, bro. He's
Yo, listen,
washed, bro.
listen.
He's
I,
washed, bro.
bro, I agree. I agree. Listen, I'm not disagreeing with you. You feel me? The dude
Mm,
is he's washed. But what I
yeah.
will say is though, right? That plus minus stuff, bro. That's a flaw stat. Let's be for real. That plus minus is horrible. His plus minus is always going to be terrible, and even whatever. But you can't tell me that second half he did not play great. You cannot tell me that. Like if you didn't watch the game, cool. But if you watched that game, he wasn't the reason why they lost that game.
No, I
Can
I
you
agree.
would
agree with
Like,
me?
here's what I would say. I would say
Okay.
things add up over
Yep.
time. The first half is inexcusable. You can't have that from your pretty much your captain of the bench. So that's all I'm gonna say on that. Because and
But
even like throughout the season, it's just been nasty. Like I'm looking at the numbers. He can't shoot, can't drive, turns the ball over too much. He's always been able to rebound and play make. That's never been the issue. Like, and I don't have a problem with him career wise. I think he's one of the greatest point guards of all time. 100% one of the most disrespected players of all time. But the disrespect is deserved here because it's been god awful.
yeah, but look though,
Mm,
this is the part I don't understand. Russell Westbrook
mhm.
has been bad since he played with the Lakers. So why does he if he's just bad overall,
mm,
why does it make it people make it such a big deal? Oh, Russ is the reason why the Nuggets are losing games. It's not because if you watch the first 5 games, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. couldn't hit a shot for their life.
agreed.
And then you
Yeah,
bring in the bench
agreed.
unit who is relying on Julian Strawther, Darius. You want to talk about players that are horrible who shouldn't be in the league? Dario Saric should not play in the NBA
Yeah,
no
they all
longer.
suck. The bench
They
sucks.
Yeah,
all suck.
The whole
So
bench
right.
sucks, Russ included though. That's the thing that ticks me off is when like people try and exclude him. Like the whole bench sucks and he's the commander. So it's like I feel like he has to take he knows what comes with that. If you're the guy who's commanding the second unit, like it's gonna happen, bro.
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about where, like, we both have talked about the Westbrook thing where we don't necessarily completely blame him for the last, several seasons. Like say with the Clippers, like even though he didn't play well in the postseason last year, you don't blame him as the primary reason because the
No.
main reason they lost was because their best player wasn't even really available. And then their second best player, he was available, but he didn't even play well. So you don't really blame Westbrook for that. And even in the previous years, like say the first year with the Lakers, like he wasn't great, but LeBron and AD also weren't necessarily healthy that year. So it's not really been all his fault. And that's where he's definitely been disrespected and it kind of goes overboard. But the issue is for the Nuggets, he does have to be better in order for them to probably win more games because the second unit is the main reason why they're losing. But to be fair, everybody in that second unit has been atrocious. And if Westbrook wasn't there, it would probably look just as bad, if not, probably worse because you wouldn't even have any real creation. But you probably would have to stagger shooting from that group, and they just don't have it. Like even their young guys that they were kind of hoping to be good that could shoot the ball and space the floor, they haven't done it either.
Yeah.
See, my thing is when you put Russ, a player that can't shoot, with Peyton Watson, who's horrible at the 3-point line, Julian Strawther, who's finally playing, Dario Saric, who sucks, and then you kind of stagger Michael Porter Jr. a little bit. Like it's tough, and I'm not saying Russ is playing great. Like I can admit that. Like I'm not gonna be biased out here, but bro, he needs at least some separation with him and shooting to space out the floor because that's how he plays his best basketball. But it is what it is. That Denver team is gonna struggle for a while, Yarby.
Oh yeah, I know that whole bench is horrible. Like
Yeah.
it's really bad, and I don't know what they can potentially do to fix that. I think probably nothing at this point. I thought they were going to be an underrated team because I like the Russell Westbrook signing. I thought it was going to be awesome, but then wake up to reality, and lo and behold, Dario Saric doesn't know how to play basketball. And I guess it was more so I was hoping that the other guys would take a leap. Like I thought Peyton Watson would actually be able to shoot the basketball. I thought Julian Strawther would be a knockdown guy, but those guys have been worse than Russell Westbrook.
And that's something that we talked about where their main chances at a title hinge mostly on, outside of Jokic, Jamal Murray being elite. And then after that, you were hoping that the second unit guys, the young guys, would be better. And Christian Brown's been good. But outside of that, all these guys have been just bad. And to be fair, small sample size, maybe it'll get better. But we also don't really have a lot of evidence that any of these guys are even really that great regardless. I don't have a lot of evidence that Julian Strawther is good. I don't really have a lot of evidence that Peyton Watson is consistently good. I've seen him in spurts, but I haven't seen him consistently over the course of, multiple seasons be good. He was okay for them in the regular season last year. He just can't shoot. And if he can't shoot, he can't really be out there because nobody's going to guard him. And then that's too many guys that Denver has that nobody has to guard from three. You don't have to guard Aaron Gordon from three. You don't have to guard Westbrook from three. You don't have to guard. Jamal
Brown. Murray. Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray sucks.
Yeah,
Jamal Murray is garbage.
Yeah,
he is so he, like you said. I was listening. He makes no separation. I think there was an ISO play where he tried to go for the game winner or tie the game a couple days ago. He literally was getting locked. He couldn't get the dude was just bro, where are you going? He. It's horrible. Now he has this concussion.
It was Brooklyn, right? It was Brooklyn?
Yeah, it was Brooklyn. Yeah, it was Brooklyn.
Come on, bro.
Yeah, it was the game tie was Toronto, but the Brooklyn was the other one, the bad one for him, at least.
He's cooked, bro. And people were saying that was good defense. No, it was just bad offense, bro.
Yeah, he just cooked.
Yeah, because I've seen him hit some ridiculous shots over good defense in the past. And again, maybe the injury's still bugging him, so maybe he's just kind of playing his way into basketball shape, which is probably part of it because he was, dinged up in the postseason last year. But, now he's going to be out for a couple of games anyways. If he's out with a concussion protocol, he's not coming back next game, because that's the rule. You can't come back immediately. You got to sit out for at least a little bit until you get cleared from that. But, we're not turning this into a Denver hate podcast. It's just
No. But my Wemby take, because I want to make y'all understand this. My Wemby take was mainly pretty much saying the expectations for him coming into the year was he's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be probably in the MVP conversation. And like you said, it's 4 or 5 games in. But for the start of the season, that's why I said he's been mid. Because when you put to those high expectations for all that MVP Defensive Player of the Year, and I've been watching him play, I'm bro, what's up with this dude? He don't look he looks weak. He looks he's struggling. Like, and he's like, I don't know if it's the team he's playing with. I thought he could play better with Chris Paul and stuff like that. But listen, it's not what I expected. I expected Wemby to dominate, and he's not. I need that Paolo Banchero domination. I need Wemby to go out there and give me 50 because Wemby could do that. He
And
could do that and play defense. You
the
know what I'm
thing,
saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
the thing that I think that's going on with him is like I've seen a lot of comparisons. Like you even brought up Paolo. That team is really freaking good, and Paolo is really good as well. The Spurs, Wemby is good, but that team is horrible. Like and like the even like Chet, like people are comparing him to Chet. Chet is good, but OKC is also good. Like I feel like
Yeah.
Wemby has to have the right talent around him. Like
Yeah.
the second best player on the floor right now is what? Probably Harrison Barnes or Sohan. Like let's
Yeah.
be real, bro. Like that's not a good squad.
Right.
Like he
And
draws
that's
so much attention. And I know what you're talking about, like the plays. Yeah, he has looked horrible. Like you can't deny that. But I'm not gonna say like he's
I'm not
like
worried.
I don't think he's like a bust or anything like that. And I'm
Nah,
not worried. I think he's gonna pick it up.
Yeah.
He was a slow starter last year, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like he
And
really got into like the like prime shape towards the end of the season. So
yeah, and like to be fair for the Spurs, like that's one of the reasons why when we did our over unders, like we went under on the Spurs because there were some people in our comments on the shorts that we were putting up there that were kind of saying like they think the Spurs would make the playoffs, or the play-in, and we were kind of saying like, oh, if Wemby's like a top 5 or 10 guy, like he might have a shot, but both of us were not really anticipating the Spurs to be able to make the playoffs because outside of Wemby, like you said, who else on this team is really, really good. Like I do like Devin Vassell, but he's not playing. And then after that, you got a decent drop off in terms of who the next best player is. Because like you said, it's either basically Harrison Barnes or Jeremy Sohan, and both of those guys are solid players, but they shouldn't be your second best player. If they're your
yeah,
second best player, I don't care who you are, you're probably not a playoff team at this point in the NBA because there's too much talent.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean that on paper, like before the season started, I understand why people say it. I mean, like they're thinking, okay, now Wemby got a playmaker with CP3,
Yeah.
Harrison Barnes is upgrade. I mean, they still had Keldon Johnson, but I don't know what happened to him. Obviously, Vassell and Shohan and stuff like that. But and then you have Popovich and stuff like that. So on paper, I see it, but on the court, it's totally different. You got to go out there and perform against these teams that would just they scheme for you and stuff like that. So yeah, the Spurs ain't going no playoffs. The interesting thing is with the Spurs is when do they take that step and be like, okay, Wemby's our guy, but like we need to add pieces around him. Do they still keep going young for like how long?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
my thing.
I think as long as they continue to be a non-playoff team, that's probably what they're going to have to do because they probably need somebody I like on the perimeter that can probably be, the future piece next to Wemby as the point guard. Like maybe it's Castle, but maybe he ends up being a two. Like which I think is kind of where we had him kind of mocked anyways, is more of like an off guard that can, defend and cut. But, you probably would prefer a more perimeter shooting oriented playmaking guard, and they don't have that right now. Like Chris Paul, I guess can sometimes do it, but he's also almost 40. So, realistically, him being their starting point guard, and like he's played okay. He's not been bad or anything, but future wise, like that's kind of where you're hoping you might be able to turn some of these pieces into like maybe you could trade for somebody. Like maybe down the line, maybe they could acquire, like some random disgruntled point guard. But, either that or you got to hope that, you're in the draft. But if they're going to be a bottom tier team again, then, this is a good draft. So they might have a shot at being bad enough to pick up somebody. And I think they have the Hawks pick too, right? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean
if they got both of those, I mean, they might be set
they
for
have
next.
they're in a good situation because I'm not worried about them because this next draft is insane. Whether they pick Dylan Harper or somebody, I want them to be as bad as possible so they can either get Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper.
Yeah.
Like one of those guys is going to be an elite guy, and whichever one they pick. So like say they pick Dylan Harper, okay, then
Mhm.
we just go out and trade for an elite wing or something like that, because
Yeah,
that's what they're going to need, and then vice versa. Like if they pick Ace Bailey, go out and trade for a serviceable starting point guard that's better than Chris Paul and Trey Jones.
exactly. Yeah, because
So
that's where you're looking at.
I have a question, by the way. Why and I get it, they're a championship team. It's about the Minnesota real quick. Why is Rob not playing?
Defense.
Uh,
Can't defend.
yeah, it's the defense. It's
And
the
look at the
defense.
schedule. Like, I think they played some pretty solid teams. If I'm not mistaken.
Well, they have. I just feel like Mike Conley's not. How long do you think Mike Conley has left? Like that's my thing.
Right.
I think reps is more important. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that's their future. Rob and Ant. That's what I think they're hoping at least.
I mean,
can't
I'm a little
defend,
surprised.
though.
Yeah,
Well, you better learn. You better learn, my boy.
Yeah,
You gotta do
literally,
that.
like, it's crazy.
I am a little surprised that I thought he would play some regular season rotational minutes, like because I think we talked about it in the offseason where we kind of assumed like, okay, he could be like a backup point guard, like we saw in the preseason, where like he can maybe give you some offense. But I guess to be fair, like when they first drafted Dillingham, we didn't expect them to bring in Randall and DiVincenzo, so it's like
That's
now you
true.
kind of have the playmaking covered with these second units, I guess. But like, I don't know. Like I think he's more of like a future pick where it's like this season doesn't really hinge on him. It kind of hinges more on the rest of the group. And then maybe next season, maybe Conley takes another step back and he's either too old and he's a backup or he retires or whatever. I think he has another year or two left on his deal. So, I mean, that's probably where they're at this point. Like I don't really think that they made the moves they made this offseason expecting to win the title this year. I think like they made those moves just to kind of lock in the core and then just kind of go from there and then hope that Edwards develops and then, the pieces around him kind of continue to grow and fit. Like that's kind of where I'm at with the group. Like I don't expect Minnesota to win the title. I expect them to still be good, but I would be pretty surprised if they came out of the West and then won the title. Like because I'm not necessarily quite there yet.
So what if Mike Conley continues to play bad though? Because like he hasn't played great.
No,
that's the thing. That's so like you're rolling with Dante, but Dante hasn't been hitting his shots, and like it could change. So it's like it's weird for Minnesota. That's why I said I'm not really worried about this team because like Ant's nasty. That's my dog. I love everything about Ant. To be honest, he's great. And he took 2 shots and those 2 shots literally won them the game pretty much against Denver. But it's like Brando, Gobert. If Gobert is getting posted by Christian Brown, bro, like yo, and then Gobert to me is just soft. I mean, he's solid, I guess. I don't know that team. We'll see what happens. The West is weird though because I hate the Lakers, but I will admit I think the Lakers can actually go far this year. I really think so.
Yeah,
you don't want to hear it, Yardby.
No
I
shot.
really.
I don't want to hear it.
I think they can. Who in the West is competition besides OK? Like if you put OKC in their tier, right? And then maybe Minnesota, but like who else?
Phoenix.
Phoenix has been playing good because of Ryan Dunn. Because he been playing great and KD and Book, but like so you can't put the Lakers in top 4. And I don't like the Lakers, trust and believe, but you can't put Lakers in top 4. Like
I don't think it's sustainable. Right now they're top 4 easily, but I'm telling you something's gonna happen. They're gonna self-implode. I'm not wishing that for them, but I could just see it.
It's what we talked about where they need additional pieces. That's kind of the main thing where like if they could find a way at the deadline or something to make an additional move to get, either some better defensive talent or more depth, then that's where I think it would be a lot more possible for them to make a deep run. But I don't feel like the team as currently constructed could make a deep run. I think they could win some regular season games because I think the starting 5 is good enough to do that. We kind of saw that the second half of last year, and JJ's done a good job. But I think they'll still need to kind of get some help, especially if Vanderbilt's just going to be out. Like, you need defense because that's kind of really the main issue right now with the squad is that, like, offensively they've been fine. Even like on nights where LeBron isn't great, like they still have other guys that can get you buckets. But then defensively, especially if AD's not out there, it's a major problem. And then like the second unit, you're just not getting any help from anybody. Like you're just kind of hoping that Max Christie becomes good, and maybe he does. Like, but we don't know. And then obviously after that, still have Dalton Connect, and then like Gabe Vincent. We don't know. I mean, like, like defensively he's been fine, but he hasn't been able to hit his shots. And I think like Dennis Schroeder was able to defend when he was a Laker, right? But he wasn't a great outside shooter. But now with but like even still, he was still better offensively than what you've gotten with Gabe. So that's where I think like you use the D'Lo piece, and then maybe you kind of flip him for something. But it can't happen right now. Like you're not going to be able to get a team to bite on that right now. But that's kind of what you're probably looking at because you can already kind of tell based off how they're playing that in that group, Austin's kind of the guy that has the keys to the offense as the guard. Where like D'Lo's kind of now just more like a spot up guy that occasionally attacks, but that's kind of what you want because like you already paid Austin, and you know he's more than likely a future piece of the core unless you trade him for some star. So you might as well prioritize him and kind of get those reps in now, while you can, and then you do whatever you do with D'Lo, and then you kind of go from there. But I don't think as currently constructed, they have quite enough. The thing is like with the Lakers and the Suns, it's like there are parts of their rosters where like they kind of match up well together. Like so far they're 1-1. I mean, if Bradley Beal is healthy, that's kind of the weird dichotomy because like with Ryan Dunn, he can't play as much if Bradley Beal is healthy because of the fact that you got to find minutes for all three of those guys. But the last few games he's been out, and then Ryan Dunn's in there, and now it's a more conventional lineup. It's not really like a small lineup where it's like Beal and Booker and then Durant and then Nurkic and then whatever, like and then Tyus Jones. But when
that's why Beal needs to go to the bench.
That's not going to happen.
$50 million on the bench.
Yeah, that's hey, listen. They talk. All these superstars talk about sacrificing, buddy. If you want to win, sacrifice. You got Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal, who are starters in this league, and I'm not saying they're sacrificing, but Grayson Allen had a great year last year, who just got a contract and hardly plays this year. He hardly plays this year.
Yeah,
Royce O'Neal too. I mean, let's be for real. Bill's not going to the bench, but you got to go with your best. Ryan Dunn is making your playing great defense. Like I think he's put a stat up like 32% guarding people this year.
Yeah.
You can't put that to the bench and give him less minutes unless they got to figure it out. But I mean, I'm not a Suns fan, so I got to worry about that because I'll be tight because I would want Dunn on the court. I will say though, when they played, I think yesterday, they kept making him shoot at the end of the game, and he wasn't hitting. So that is something to watch out for. I don't know. Was it yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the other night against the Clippers, and that is kind of something to think about come playoff time.
Yeah,
those type of shots that go in the regular season for him, are they going to go in come playoff time? We don't know. He's not like a 19-year-old, so it's not the same as that, right? He's like a 3-4 year college guy, I think, right? So I mean, that's a better position to be in. But he still is a rookie, and that's kind of a lot to ask. And, again, like, I am kind of curious to see what the minutes look like come playoff time, with the big three plus those guys, because he's probably a guy that's going to have to close, because there's going to be some games where I just don't think you're going to be able to close with Nurkic out there, because, like, when they play the Lakers and Nurkic is out there, there's, like, nothing he can do against Anthony Davis. Like, he's not fast enough. He's strong, but he's too slow, and, like, then they're kind of forced into playing these smaller lineups, which, again, Beal was out in that last game. Well, no, he played, so. But either way, like, that's something that you kind of have to think about, because offensively, they look much better. And I think with Dunn, they have a better defensive ceiling. It's just, again, it's a matter of the matchups. And that's kind of, other than OKC, all these other teams, it's kind of about matchups. I think OKC is talented enough. If their young guys are really good, they could probably beat anybody in the West. But I think some of these other teams have more selective paths where, like, if they can get a certain team, then that's better. Like, if Dallas plays Minnesota, I feel like they probably have the edge over Minnesota. But, like, if they play some other team, like, they may have some problems against the Suns just because, like, I don't know if the Mavs are quite as good defensively as they were last year, and I think the Suns will be better defensively. So, we'll see.
I mean, my fault. I spaced out for a second, bro.
Oh no, you're good. But yeah, so I mean, but either way, like the West, it's funny though because the West is deep. It's just other than it's just you're kind of waiting for like, all right, after OKC, who's the next best team?
And that's
right now, because right now you said what?
And that's why I said the Suns and Lakers because like there's no team in the West that you're like, okay, we're taking serious. Memphis Grizzlies, they're their most injury-prone team in the world. So they can never stay healthy. Then you got Golden State, which you said earlier they're going to fall off, right? The Rockets, you got maybe Dallas is still up there. Sacramento, like there's not much teams in this West that you're like you fair
at all. What do you think about Dallas?
listen, what I think about Dallas is like I can't judge them yet because Luka. I'm not saying Luka's out of shape, but beginning of the year for Luka, he always plays not the greatest basketball. Like he's playing good, but not Luka type basketball. If that makes sense.
Horribly.
Yeah, his field goal percentage is horrible. So I need to see Luka back into being Luka and stuff like that. So I'll see that. I mean, Clay been playing okay. I mean, I guess right, but I don't know how I feel about Dallas until I see Luka play Luka basketball. So
And I think that's kind of like maybe what they're banking on is like assuming he continues to play at an MVP level, which he'll be better. And then you got
100%.
Kyrie and the other guys. It's just I don't know. Like defensively, I am curious to see what it looks like in the postseason because the defense was pretty good last year for them. But their offense should be better, assuming Clay can still shoot, which I think he still can. So that's the other team where I'm curious, where I feel like that could be the other team that I think is really good. Just the Luka and Kyrie factor. There's a lot of teams that don't necessarily have that. But the West feels kind of open, but OKC is still kind of looming large. Where like if they actually reach their ceiling, then they might just kind of be the prohibitive favorite. But we got to wait and see so far, and they can make moves too, I think.
What I will say, Yarby, I don't know if you had something to say about Dallas. Their bench is pretty bad. Like, I mean, Hardy's not playing the greatest. You expected a leap from him, right? You traded for Grimes. Najee Marshall was supposed to be your Derrick Jones Jr. replacement. I mean, Dinwiddie. I think Dinwiddie's horrible. I think he's one of the worst players in the NBA. Maybe I'm exaggerating. He just can't do shit. Sorry to swear. I think he's just terrible. So I mean, those are your bench pieces. I mean, Lively's your best bench piece, and there's nothing against Lively, but to have a center that needs to be set up to score is not going to lead your bench unit at all. So it's just like this bench is pretty bad. Like they're bad. Like they're averaging 4 points a game. Like their second leader score off the bench is 4 points a game.
Yeah, so I mean, some of it, I think, just offensively, there's a lot of guys for the Mavs that just have kind of started off slow on offense, and I think it'll pick up. It's just a matter of, which guys kind of stand out by the end. Like, I think Grimes, just because he's a 3-and-D guy, he should probably be, a decent guard off the bench. Marshall should be better because I think we've seen him play better, but maybe not. Who knows? And then, you'll still have either Luka or Kyrie in those second units too, right? So I think they'll be able to figure some of that out. I think some guys are just kind of playing their way back into shape just because of the finals run. Like I think that's part of it.
Possibly, but y'all have a great night. This dude Yarby's falling asleep over here once again, bro. Wake
I'm losing it. I'm losing.
Yeah, I know. I could tell. I could tell.
And we'll probably end it, probably about here anyway. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. And about your Wizards take, my man. Listen, the thing is, I can acknowledge my team is not the greatest. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. See, that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I promise you, and I could put up any type of money, we'll finish that, y'all. Okay.
Oh yeah. That's guaranteed. Like,
okay.
Both
my
of our teams are trash, bro.
Yeah, no. And I agree. I agree. But you know what? My team is trash, but don't be surprised if Boston and Miami play each other once again, and it's a dogfight. Don't be surprised.
It's not gonna be a dogfight.
Yeah, okay. You'll see. It's gonna
be a sweep. It's gonna be a sweep.
Sweep. Okay, stop. We took one game without Jimmy last year.
Yeah, well, that was when Bam actually looked like an NBA player.
Nah, don't get me started with Bam.
Now he looks like a freaking 6'6" power forward, bro. On 2K.
He looks like the Bam Bam from the cartoon, the Flintstones.
Yeah, bro.
He sucks. Yeah, he's pretty bad. But let me not get started.
He'll be better.
Yeah, L start, bro. L start.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like that's, we've kind of covered most of our bases here, in terms of our, NBA talk so far this week. I mean, we're going to try to see if we can do it as a weekly thing. Obviously, schedules can change and things like that, but that's kind of the plan that we have set out. So, obviously, if you have anything else to say, you can kind of shout at anyone out before we end it.
I mean, shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out Keith Wells. Shout out Miami Heat Network. We appreciate y'all coming through. Shout out to Trent for coming on here and helping us out, talk all that good stuff. I'm freaking losing it, bro. I'm tired, but yeah, we will be live streaming again at some point very soon. And we'll see y'all in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe.